Good morning all. In the previous video, we have discussed about chemical bonding, different types of chemical bonds and an introduction to ionic bond. In this video, we are going to discuss in detail about ionic bonding and we'll discuss how ionic bonds are formed, what are the factors favoring its formation and energetics of ionic bond formation and also Born-Haber cycle. So let's go to the first slide. Ionic bond. What is meant by an ionic bond? We know these are formed by the transfer of electrons from one element to another. So when electrons are transferred from one element to another element, there will be formation of ions, positive ions as well as negative ion. The atom which loses electrons become positive ion or cation, and the atom that gains the electron become negative ion or anion. Now, the force of attraction which holds these cations and anions together in a molecule is called ionic bond or electrovalent bond. So we can say it is the electrostatic force of attraction or Coulombic attraction which binds constituent ions together in an ionic compound is called ionic bond. Now let's see the formation of ions from atoms. We know ions are formed from the atoms by the loss or gaining of electrons. And ionic compounds are resulting when metals react with non-metals. We know metals are having a high electropositive character and non-metals having electronegative character. So the electropositive metals easily lose their valence electrons and thereby become positive charged ions. Depending upon the number of valence electron, they can become monopositive, dipositive, tripositive, etc. In the same way, non-metals which are having a tendency to accept electrons or they are more electronegative elements and they gain electrons to form anions. For example, chloride anion, oxide anion, etc. Let's see some of the general properties of ionic compounds. First of all, about their structure. Ionic compounds are mostly crystalline solids. Most of them are having very high ordered arrangement and they are crystalline solids. And about melting point and boiling point. The ionic compounds, because of the presence of strong electrostatic attraction between the ions, have very high melting and boiling points. This is because of the high charge or high Coulombic attraction existing in them. And also electrical conductivity. The ionic compounds are excellent conductors in the molten phase as well as in the solution phase. But in the solid state, they are not at all conductors. In solid state, the reason is they have a very high ordered arrangement. They are close packed structures and in the solid state they cannot conduct electricity, but in the molten state as well as in the aqueous state there are free ions and they can carry electricity as well as heat. And solubility in water. Most of the ionic compounds are generally soluble in water, and we know water is having very high polarity and it is having a good dielectric constant. So with these properties, water is able to dissolve most of the ionic compounds. Let's take the typical example of sodium chloride compound to discuss the formation of an ionic compound. First of all, we must know the valence configuration of the atoms. We know sodium atom, it is having a configuration 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s1. So valence configuration is 3s1 and chlorine atom, its valence configuration is 3s2, 3p5. So for chlorine atom, one electron is required to complete its valence configuration or to complete its octet, whereas in the case of sodium atom, by removing one electron, it can attain the nearest noble gas configuration. So here the highly electropositive sodium atom gives its valence electron. It can easily be removed and can be given to chlorine atom. By removing the valence electron, sodium now becomes sodium ion, and chlorine atom, by accepting one electron from the sodium atom, now becomes chloride anion. We can see that there is a drastic decrease in the size of the ion when one electron is removed from sodium atom. So the atomic radii and ionic radii are very much different. Ionic radii is very much smaller than that of the atomic radii. This is because one of the shell is totally removed from the atom upon the removal of one electron. Whereas in the case of chlorine, there is not much pronounced change in the radii. So this is the equation showing the formation of sodium chloride. Sodium atom loses one electron to become Na plus cation, and chlorine atom accept the electron to form chloride anion. Next, we can discuss the energetics of ionic bond formation. That means what all energy changes take place when an ionic compound is formed. So for this, we can take the typical example of sodium chloride. So in the formation of sodium chloride, we can divide the whole process into three main steps. In the first step, which involves the conversion of gaseous sodium atom to sodium ion. So the amount of energy associated with this process is called ionization energy. We can define ionization energy as the amount of energy required to remove the most loosely bound electron from the valence shell of a gaseous atom. So here you must remember that the sodium atom has to be in the gaseous state, neutral atom in the gaseous state. So when that valence electron is removed, in order to remove that valence electron, we need to supply energy externally, and that energy we are supplying, or the energy required to remove the most loosely bound electron from the valence shell of the gaseous atom, is called ionization energy. For first group elements, we know the ionization energy is very smaller because by removing one electron, they can attain stability. So they have low ionization energy. And in the second step, which involves conversion of gaseous chlorine atom to chloride anion. And in this process, energy is released, and that energy is called electron affinity. So we can define electron affinity as the amount of energy released when an extra electron is added to an isolated gaseous atom in its ground state. So here the energy is releasing when an electron is added to chlorine, and when it becomes chloride anion, it is attaining stability, and during this process large amount of energy is releasing. And this released energy is called electron affinity. That is the amount of energy released when an extra electron is added to an isolated gaseous atom. So this is also in the gaseous state. So now we got gaseous sodium ion and gaseous chloride ion. So the third step involves the combination of Na plus and Cl minus gaseous ion to form solid crystalline sodium chloride. And here also energy will be released. A large amount of energy will be released during this process, and that energy released is called lattice energy. So we can define lattice energy as the amount of energy released when one mole of a crystalline compound is formed from their constituent gaseous ions. So remember here sodium chloride is forming, the solid sodium chloride is forming from their constituent gaseous ions, and this energy is called lattice energy, and this is the energy releasing. So this is an exothermic process. Upon the formation of sodium chloride, some amount of energy will be released, which is called lattice energy of sodium chloride, or it is the amount of energy released when 1 mole of sodium chloride solid is formed from their constituent gaseous ions. So these are the energetics of ionic bond formation. Various energy changes taking place during the formation of an ionic compound, and we have discussed it with an example of sodium chloride. So step 1 involves conversion of sodium atom to sodium ion. For this, an amount of energy is required, which is called ionization energy. In the step 2, the conversion of chlorine gas into chloride anion occurs, and there is some amount of energy released during this process, which is called electron affinity. And the final step is the combination of gaseous Na plus and gaseous chloride ion to form solid sodium chloride, and the amount of energy released during this process is called lattice energy. So that is the lattice energy, which is the amount of energy released when 1 gram equivalent of a solid is formed from its constituent gaseous ions. And we can generally represent it using this equation: A plus gaseous plus B minus gaseous giving AB solid, and lattice energy is represented by the letter U. Now, lattice energy is directly proportional to the charge on the ions, and also we can say with increase in lattice energy, there will be an increased stability of the molecule. So with higher the charge on ions, more will be the attraction between the ions, and thereby their lattice energy increases. So an increased lattice energy causes an increase in the stability of the compound. And in order to calculate lattice energy, it is difficult to directly measure lattice energy because we know from the equation lattice energy measurement involves the formation of ionic compound from their gaseous ions. But usually compounds are forming from elements itself. So direct determination of lattice energy is difficult, and what we are doing is we will indirectly calculate lattice energy using Born-Haber cycle. Born-Haber cycle means it is a cyclic process which utilizes the principle of Hess's law. Hess's law is a thermodynamic law which states that enthalpy of a reaction is same whether the reaction takes place in single step or in several steps. So whatever be the number of steps involved, the net enthalpy of a reaction is same, whether it is one-step reaction or multi-step reaction. So by utilizing the principle of Hess's law, we can calculate lattice energy indirectly by using a cyclic process which is called Born-Haber cycle. So this is the Born-Haber cycle representation for sodium chloride molecule. And as per Hess's law, we know enthalpy of reaction, like in the first case, sodium solid and half mole of chlorine gas react to form sodium chloride solid, and the energy associated with this process is called delta HF, or enthalpy of formation, standard enthalpy of formation, and this is a single step reaction. The same reaction we can divide into multiple steps, which involves conversion of sodium into sodium ions through these two steps, and conversion of chlorine molecule into chloride anion, and finally their combination. So according to Hess's law, enthalpy of this reaction is same. This delta HF0 is equal to sum of all these enthalpies. Now let's see each step in detail. In the first step, according to lattice energy equation, we have this step Na plus gaseous plus Cl minus gaseous giving NaCl solid. So this equation represents lattice energy. Okay, or the amount of energy released during this step is called the lattice energy. And before attaining this, we have to reach to the ionic stage. For that, we need to convert the sodium atom to sodium ion. So we cannot directly convert sodium in the solid or metallic sodium to gaseous ion. For that, we need to first convert metallic sodium to gaseous sodium atom. then only we can provide ionization energy, because we know ionization energy by definition, it is the amount of energy required to remove the most loosely bound electron from the valence shell of a gaseous atom. So we need to have gaseous atom, only then we can convert it into ions. So first of all, you need to convert metallic sodium to gaseous sodium atom, and this process we know direct conversion of solid to gas is called sublimation. So this energy, amount of energy required for this step is called enthalpy of sublimation. And once you got the gaseous sodium atom, we can provide energy which is equal to the ionization energy of sodium atom, so that the sodium gaseous atom will be converted to gaseous sodium ion. Now, sodium ion is okay. Let's now see for chlorine molecule. We have half mole of chlorine gas. So here it is chlorine molecule, and we need to have chloride anion. To have chloride anion, we need to convert chlorine atom to chloride anion. We know the energy released during this step is called electron affinity. That means amount of energy released when an extra electron is added to an isolated gaseous atom. So this should be gaseous atom. So for that, we need to convert the chlorine molecule into chlorine atom. So that energy is called enthalpy of dissociation, enthalpy of bond dissociation, or we can say enthalpy of atomization. Chlorine molecule is converted to chlorine atom. And once we got the chlorine atom, it can be converted to chloride anion easily, and some amount of energy will be released during this conversion, which is called electron affinity. So now chlorine molecule has converted to chlorine atom by absorbing this much amount of energy, that is delta H dissociation, and chlorine atom has converted to chloride anion by releasing this much amount of energy. Now the ions are ready. So these ions spontaneously combine to give sodium chloride solid, sodium chloride crystalline solid, and here also some amount of energy which is equivalent to minus 788 kilojoule. This much amount of energy will be released during this process upon the combination of gaseous sodium ion and gaseous chloride ion to form solid sodium chloride. So this energy is called lattice energy. So we can say, as per Hess's law, enthalpy of formation of sodium chloride is the sum of all these enthalpies. So we can write the equation delta HF0 equal to delta H of sublimation plus ionization energy plus dissociation energy delta H plus electron affinity plus lattice energy. And here one more thing you have to remember, delta H dissociation when we calculate, we should take half of that. Delta H dissociation should be half, because here we are not taking one full mole of chlorine. Enthalpy of dissociation, we know by definition, it is the amount of energy required to dissociate one mole of a bond into atoms. But here we are not taking one mole, we need to take half mole. Okay, so enthalpy of dissociation in the case of sodium chloride, you can take as half into delta H, and that value is 122 kilojoule per mole. Okay, so using this equation, you can indirectly calculate lattice energy, because all other energy terms can be easily measured. Only lattice energy is unknown, that you can calculate by subtracting these energies from the delta HF value. So this cyclic process is called Born-Haber cycle, which explain the formation or measurement of lattice energy indirectly. This table shows the lattice energies of various ionic solids, and we can see from the table that the lattice energy increases consecutively from uni-univalent to bi-univalent to bi-bivalent ions. So in the first set we have univalent ion. That means both cation and anion are univalent. In the second set we have biunivalent ions, and in the third step we have bivalent ion. So with this increase in valency, we have already seen that higher the charge on the ions, more will be the lattice energy. So we can clearly see from left to right, there is an increase in the lattice energy. And also, when you compare, say, lithium fluoride with cesium fluoride, you can see there is a decrease in the lattice energy. This decrease is because, you know, lithium and cesium, when you compare the size of these ions, lithium is of smaller size when compared to cesium. And here, in the case of lithium, the charge density will be more. We know both are unipositive, and in the case of lithium ion, that single positive charge is located on a smaller area, whereas in the case of cesium, that single positive charge is located over a larger area. So the charge density is high in the case of lithium, and that is why there is a higher extent of attraction and higher lattice energy. So this is an example for a practice problem. You have to devise the Born-Haber cycle and calculate the lattice energy of magnesium fluoride with the help of the data given. You are provided the enthalpy of sublimation of magnesium, dissociation energy of fluorine, the first and second ionization energies of magnesium, electron affinity of fluorine, and enthalpy of formation of magnesium fluoride. So first of all, we can write down the Born-Haber cycle, and then we can calculate the lattice energy. So while writing the Born-Haber cycle, you must remember we are given first of all the single step energy that is enthalpy of formation. So the equation for that process is magnesium plus F2. 1 mole of magnesium reacts with 1 mole of fluorine molecule to give MgF2 solid compound. And the equation for lattice energy is Mg2 plus 2F minus giving MgF2. So here we know uh, the first step, the enthalpy of formation reaction, that is a single step reaction, and this lattice energy calculation, like the other steps combinedly give the same product. So according to Hess's law, delta HF, that is enthalpy of the single step reaction, is same as that of the sum of enthalpies of all these multi steps. Okay, so first of all, we are converting magnesium solid into gaseous magnesium atom, and the energy required for this process is enthalpy of sublimation. In the second stage, the gaseous magnesium atom is converted to magnesium 2 plus ion, that is ionization of the magnesium atom. And in the case of magnesium, we know there are two valence electrons. So the two valence electrons are not removed uh, altogether. First of all, the first electron will be removed, and the amount of energy required to remove first electron or one of the valence electron is called first ionization energy. And then the Mg plus is converted to Mg2 plus. That means the second electron from the valence shell is converted or removed to Mg2 plus ion. So we have two successive ionization energies, and when we compare their magnitude, the second ionization energy is almost double the first ionization energy. The reason is, once the first electron is removed, now the system is a positive charge system, Mg plus. Now it is already electron deficient, and you have to remove one more electron from an already electron deficient system. So you need to provide large amount of energy for second ionization. And that is why the difference comes. So magnesium gaseous atom is ionized into magnesium 2 plus in two steps. In the first step, it's converted to Mg plus, and in second step, it's converted to Mg2 plus. And then fluorine gas, fluorine molecule we have, 1 mole of fluorine, that should be converted to 2 fluorine atom. Here in the compound, in the final product, we need 2 fluorine atoms. So 1 complete delta HD is required. That is enthalpy of dissociation, the amount of energy required to dissociate 1 mole of a bond into atoms, or enthalpy of atomization. Now, the fluorine atoms are converted to fluoride ions, and the energy released during this process is called electron affinity. We have two into electron affinity. We can write in this way because we have two fluorine atoms. First, by providing or by releasing an amount of energy equivalent to the electron affinity, one fluorine atom is converted to 1F minus. So 2 times electron affinity, that much amount of energy is released during the conversion of 2 fluorine gaseous atoms to 2 fluoride gaseous ions. Now the magnesium cation and fluoride anions are ready. These two will combine spontaneously to form magnesium fluoride crystals. And the amount of energy during this process is the lattice energy. So as per Hess law, we can write delta HF is the sum of delta HS, ionization energy 1, ionization energy 2, delta HD, and plus 2 electron affinity and lattice energy. So from this, you can calculate lattice energy, and the value is coming around minus 2931.7 kilojoule per mole. Next is the relation between lattice energy and solvation energy. We know ionic compounds are soluble in most of the polar solvents, and in order to dissolve or in order to facilitate dissolution of an ionic compound in a solvent, the solvent must possess some requirements. First of all, it should have an energy that is called the solvation energy, and this solvation energy must overcome the lattice energy of the ionic compound. This is because we know lattice energy, that much amount of energy is associated with the molecule, okay, with the ionic compound, or it is the energy holding the ions together. And upon the breaking of that bond, the same amount of energy will be released. The amount of energy which is possessed within the molecule is released as lattice energy. So in order to dissolve the ionic compound, first of all, the solid compound has to be separated into ions. So the solvent must be capable of breaking this ionic bond into separate or constituent ions. Only then it will go into solution and dissolve. So we can say the solvation energy of the solvent must be higher than the lattice energy in order to dissolve a particular solvent. And we know water is a very good solvent with high dielectric constant value, and it is known as the universal solvent which can dissolve most of the ionic compounds. And here also in the case of water, it is having very high solvation energy, and when when an ionic compound, say for example sodium sulfate, when it is added to water, what happens is water will form hydration sphere around the cation and anion. So here, surrounding the sodium ion, there will be hydration spheres. First, a primary hydration sphere will be formed, and secondly, a secondary hydration sphere will be formed. Similarly, surrounding the anion also, there will be primary and secondary hydration spheres. So this hydration sphere formation prevents the ions from further binding up and thereby converting it into solid. Okay, so by doing or by forming the hydration spheres, water molecule can split the ions easily and can dissolve them easily. So higher the solvation energy of the solvent, more easily the ionic compound can dissolve. But if the lattice energy of the ionic compound is very high, then dissolution will be difficult. Otherwise, the solvent should be highly, or solvent should have high solvation energy. So we can say lattice energy and solvation energy, they are linearly related. If higher the amount of lattice energy of the ionic compound, A solvent with higher solvation energy is required to dissolve it. So these are the general things in about ionic bonding. We have discussed the formation of ionic bond, energetics of ionic bond formation, and then lattice energy, its calculation by Born-Haber cycle, and lattice energy and solvation energy. So this is the fundamental concepts regarding ionic bonding. In the next video, we can discuss about covalent bonding. Thank you.